Hello, everybody. This is Dogmancams.com, and I'm your host, John Bell. And today we've got a special guest for you, Tiffany from Washington State. And she's got some Bigfoot encounters she's going to be sharing with us, as well as some other strange activities. So, Tiffany, why don't you give us a brief bio on yourself and start explaining how you got started in all of this?
Well, I'm just an ordinary person. I live up here in the Pacific Northwest. I own a small business, and I've been living in this area for 28 years. And about into 2012, I decided, I love cryptids. I've been studying them on and off all my life, and I decided that instead of just reading about and hearing about other people's encounters, that I wanted to just get in the driver's seat and see what I could do. And so I began by going up into the woods, leaving food offerings and seeing, where that goes. And I would drive up to this one area and park my car and just listen to the woods and see what happens, that way. But it took me a lot of courage, to step out of my car, at night, because I was kind of chicken and I was alone, which isn't the smartest thing, from what I hear. So I kept doing that. And this one area where I would leave food offerings one day, and it was during the day, I had left all this food out there, and something just went crashing through a bush, like maybe 30 feet from me, in full view. But it looked like the bush was like blown wide apart, but I did not see anything physical pass through it. But it was like something passed through it. I don't know what that was. So, it didn't, I wasn't afraid because it was running away from me, not at me. So, that was kind of cool.
Right.
And then like several months later, I had taken a homeless person into my house, and she was mute. She couldn't speak. And she wanted to go up with me once. And, after a lot of times of telling her no, I finally brought her with me. And we had gone up there to do this food offering. And when we were going back, there's a rock slide area, a really beautiful rock slide area that we have to, walk past. And just randomly, a rock rolled in front of her and a rock rolled behind her at the same time. And she just got scared and started to run. And I yelled at her to stop. And she did thankfully listen to me. And so then I didn't feel any danger. I kind of felt it was kind of like, I was kind of amused in my head about that. It was just kind of funny. So, so that was kind of like, the, just not too much has happened up in that area, just those two incidents, other than, well, I was up there one night and sitting in my car, and the whole forest sounds just went silent, and you could hear very heavy bipedal walking um, on the slope that was across on the other side of the creek. And that did scare me. So so it took about 3 years before I finally, I was building my courage. I just, it was not easy to do, but I kept doing it. And then I got a kayak, and that kind of changed things up a lot, because I felt safe in certain areas. Get I would I do like to run around in the woods and on the fire roads and stuff like that. But then certain areas happen to I keep getting pictures of these areas in my mind, and one of them was this lake. And so I went on Craigslist. I bought a kayak, and the very first time I went up, I didn't think anything was going to happen. Um, and I got there late afternoon because if anything's going to happen, it happens after the sun goes down. And so I was camped out on the other side of the lake, and I was laying there in my sleeping bag, and something took a hold of my hair. and then I felt this pressure on my chest, and it got to the point where I couldn't breathe. But the crazy thing was, is I did not feel fear. Um, I felt amazed at this. I was happy. I know that doesn't sound that doesn't sound right, but something was happening, and it was exciting to me. But it got to the point where I really was struggling to try to get any kind of a breath. But I finally was able uh, to just kind of like squeak out, "Please be nice," and then whatever it was just released and vanished. Then I was just bolt upright and just super excited. I mean, I was like, wow, this something happened, and there was no way I was anywhere near anybody else. It wasn't a human, whatever it was. And so then eventually I calmed down and got in my sleeping bag again and was laying there. I will say that I do drink like 2 energy drinks, so I don't go up there to sleep. I just go up there to listen and see what happens. And I don't sleep in a tent. I'm just in a sleeping bag because I want to be right there if something's going to happen. I don't want to have to unzip a tent to go look. So later on that night, I heard bipedal footsteps walking up to me from the lake again. But this time it took a hold of my feet, and it was like palpating my feet. I could feel thumbs. It was amazing. And I was just like marveling at it. It was like examining me, and I was like studying it. And but then I stupidly slid my hand out and said, "Could you please do that to my hand?" And then it just vanished again. It just gone. And you don't. It's it when I say vanished, you don't hear it walking or running away. It's just gone. And so that was all that happened that night. Except, are you there?
Yep, I'm
Oh,
listening. I'm just
my
letting you tell your story.
yeah, my screen went black. Sorry.
Oh, okay, okay.
So that's what it does. So anyway, I when the sun started coming up, I noticed about 15 feet from me there was like this big wet spot, and I went over to examine it, and the dirt was really powdery, and it was like somebody just stood there and peed, and you could see where the stream hit the ground and made the little craters, and then you could see where it soaked out from there. And I was on my hands and knees, practically digging through this. I don't know. In past life, I might have been a scientist. I don't know, but anyway, so I tried to smell it. It didn't smell strong at all. It had hardly any odor to it. And so, really, I don't know what it was. I didn't take a urine sample or anything. I don't actually go up there for um, evidence to prove to the world of anything. This is kind of like my own personal journey. And so, anyway, so there was that interesting, big, suspicious wet spot. And nothing else happened, the next few visits that I went up to the lake that year, except for this one time I was in another spot, and I, it was like I was having a lucid dream. Um, I had had the energy drinks, but I was still somewhat dozy. And so I think I went into a lucid dream, and in that, 3 figures came out of the woods down to the shoreline. One was like head and shoulders taller than the others, and the other two were smaller. Um, and they were doing something by the water, and then all of a sudden they all three looked at me, and they started to walk towards me in this lucid dream that I had. I was aware of everything going on, the heron that makes its noises across the lake and stuff, and other night sounds. And they started walking up towards me, and in my lucid dream I decided that I was prepared to deal with one thing, but three was too many, so I made myself go back to sleep. But then later on that night, it was like something was smelling me. um, it just thoroughly smelling me from head to toe. And I'm not sure if that was a lucid dream or not. I don't know. So that was that for that year. And, I go up there camping when it's, generally warmer weather, which I swear up here we get 2 weeks of summer and the rest of it's winter. So, but the following year, I had one encounter that was scary because I had gone up at that time of the month, and I will never do that again. It was like it was angry. Whatever it was, you could feel the energy in this cove was just really mad.
And
And
you believe it was angry because of the menstruation cycle?
yes,
Okay.
I think. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'd never encountered something angry like that. Not like that. And then it was this violent rock throwing, and it sounded like big rocks. And I will say it sounded like rocks hitting the water. And I'll get to that later. But it was just one after the other. You could hear the rocks hit the water, the first sound of it, and then the clap of the water over the back of the rock. So they were sizable rock sounds. And I could also hear something walking really briskly through the water, just that swoosh, swoosh sound. And it was, I don't know, it was frightening. And I was in my sleeping bag, and then at one point, it kept going on, and I couldn't believe it kept going on for a very long time. And I don't bring my phone because there's no cell service anywhere up there. So yeah, I'm not very smart. I don't recommend to anybody to do this the way I do this. I do not recommend it. But anyway, so I had to pee, and it was either pee in my sleeping bag or get up and go to the spot where I had designated that area. And so I started talking to it and literally just apologizing for going up there in that way. And I'll never do that again. And it kind of quieted down a little bit. And so I went up, did my pee, came back. And the other thing too is I bring an instrument because I've heard that they do like music of some sort. And I'm not saying, I'm playing a guitar or something. So I'm not talented musically, but there's a one very simple instrument that I use, and it does the job. So I started playing that, and the energy changed, and it got more peaceful, and the rock throwing got farther and farther apart. And then about an hour before dawn, or my guesstimation, an hour before dawn, it completely stopped. So, but I was grateful, that the rocks weren't being thrown at my head. And that was my realization was, this thing might be angry and it might be just going off the chain, but it wasn't harming me. It was giving me a lesson I will never forget. Yeah, don't go up there that time of the month. And then a few months, or like maybe almost a month later, I had been going through a kind of a breakup, and it was hard, and I had the second round of atrial fibrillation going on in my chest at the time, and it's not pleasant. It's like this weird feeling, this flippy, somersaulty feeling of something in your chest that you can't control, and then you're coughing and you can't help that, and it's just an eerie feeling and not good. So anyway, I was up at the lake again, and I was laying in my sleeping bag. This was in a different area. It wasn't actually a campsite, and it was just a trail coming off the lake. But I was attracted to that area, so I went there that time. And I was laying there in the sleeping bag, and I heard very, very, very light footsteps coming up to me. And whatever it was that was walking up to me, I don't think it was a Sasquatch. I don't know what it was, but it was very, very light-footed. And then what happened next was I felt this sensation it was like I've had Reiki done to me by a person that really, she was like a master Reiki person, and you can feel this buzzing vibrational electrical current that passes through your body when they're doing that. Well, whatever this thing was that had walked up to me, I could feel this sensation start from like uh, below my head to uh, about 2 inches above my knees. And it passed through once, and then it once going down, it passed through going back up, and then whatever it was just simply vanished. And it was a few days later I realized that my atrial fibrillation was completely gone, and uh, that just floored me, and it hasn't been back since. So that's you know, that's a blessing. I can't explain that. You know, what else is running around in the woods?
Right. That's phenomenal.
Yeah. So, but you know, and I will continue to go up in the woods, but I've had a I had a I've had a 2 year hiatus of not going in the woods because I had a really serious trial with my legs, with my knees and stuff, and I didn't feel comfortable, you know, going up there in the woods, practically crippled. So
Right.
something did happen. Um, the year that I didn't, the first year I didn't go up, and it was the ordeal I was going with my knees was the cartilage was almost gone, and I had arthritis, and both knees were doing it, and I had been pursuing trying to get help with orthopedic surgeons, but all they wanted to do was do knee replacements, and I there was something in me that just said no, you know, and I'm self-employed, so a knee replacement they do one at a time. That's and you have to take 2 months off of work. Well, what self-employed person, I don't have employees, can do that? And it's certainly not me. So I found another way. I went with stem cells. But the thing with what I was going through was in so much pain that I would I had a lot of sleep deprivation. I would literally do crocodile flips all night long, and it was just it was agony. I honestly don't know how I made it through almost a year of this before I finally got the stem cells, and then it's been good ever since. I've recovered. I have recovered amazingly. But the night before the stem cells, now this is a stretch for this is going to be a stretch for a lot of people. Um, I was crocodile flipping in bed, and I felt a poke in my wrist, and I wore copper and magnetic bracelets on my wrist because I well at that time I had arthritis too, you know, in the wrists and the shoulder and everywhere, so as well as the knees. And I felt this poke, and I turned the light on, and here is this dried grass stem shoved between my bracelets and my skin. I sent you a picture of that, and
Hmm.
um, and it was weird. It was it's like, wait a minute, something's coming in my bedroom now, and it wasn't frightening, but I, you know, that the next morning I drove off and I got the stem cells, and like I said, I've been fine. So so that was that. And then this year I started to do some light hiking. I didn't do any overnights up in the woods. Just I just got caught up with my work is was really heavy busy, and at that time, you know, up until like just a few months ago, I was taking weekends off, and you know, just working during the week, so I was crammed with my work during the week, and I'd be exhausted by the weekends. And that's the other thing too is when I do the overnights, I do it during the week. I don't like to do it on the weekends because, you know, everybody from Seattle invades our woods and they're crawling all over the place. So I do it during the week when it's quiet to practically, you know, usually a lot of times there's nobody up there but me. So, which is, I'm more comfortable with that. I'm actually more worried about running into bad people than what the big guys are like. So this so far I've been fortunate.
Right. Very fortunate.
So yeah. Oh, and then there was I went to a conference in Chihuahua, Washington, and at that conference, I chose to sleep away from everybody else. It's a beautiful, it's the learning center up there at Chihuahua Peak. And it's a gorgeous grounds. And yes, this was a Sasquatch related conference. And I chose to hike down this really steep ravine, and there was black bear poop that I had to walk past, and that gave me pause. But I just kept going and found a spot down there in this beautiful ravine that had a creek that it was the head point, the headwater of this creek where it was coming out of the ground, and very thin thread of water. And I liked the energy of the place. It felt really good. But there was one night down there, uh, I I was in my sleeping bag, just kind of like trying to. It was dark because there's a lot of trees, but you could see a little bit of sky here and there. And I was like looking at the sky, looking for satellites or whatnot. And all of a sudden, I felt this weight on me, and it was a very small. It to me, it was a child. It was. I couldn't see details in the face because it was so dark. But the face skin was lighter. It almost reminded me of like a 12 to 14 pound chimpanzee sitting on top of me, gazing down at me. And I was just like, wow, this is amazing. And I put my hand out, and it put its little hand in my hand, and I was just overwhelmed. And then it just vanished. And I was, that experience just really rocked me emotionally. Um, it was humbling. I can't describe how I was feeling. It was so cool. And the next day, I was talking to this young lady who her husband had taken the kids for the weekend, but her youngest, she was still breastfeeding, so she was full. She was expressing herself in the bathroom or when she would shower, but she was basically kind of full and uncomfortable the whole weekend. But she had said that she had walked down halfway down into that ravine, and she all of a sudden her breasts let down, and she had this crazy urge that she wanted to nurse something in that ravine. She felt there was a baby down there. And but nothing came of that. She didn't get to feed whatever it was that was in there. But she felt that there was a baby down there. And as it turns out, one time when she got out of the shower, there was a little muddy footprint on her towel. So whatever it was, it followed her in there. And I don't know if some people say these things are interdimensional. They can blink in and out. I've heard some people say that they have cloaking abilities. I don't know, but I do believe her, and it was exciting because it felt like I had a reassurance that what I saw actually was what I saw, was a baby. So that's the only time I've ever actually seen one.
And that's the one you saw on your chest?
Yeah, that's the one I saw on my chest.
And when you said that it left, I mean, did it like leap away or?
No, it was there 1 second, and a few seconds later, I would say maybe the encounter might have been not even 10 seconds. My mind was just going crazy. And
if I remember right, in the pre-interview, you said you reached up and touched its hand.
I put my hand out, yes, and it put its hand on me, and I could feel this little tiny hand, and I could see the outline of its hand on my hand, and I was just blown away by that. And then it was gone. I mean, it did not leap off me like an animal getting off of me or a human would get off of me. It just blinked out.
I heard a story recently where a guy said that he was trying to hunt one that was supposed to be dangerous, a Bigfoot,
Yeah,
and had it in his crosshairs, and he was in the process of pulling the trigger, and he said it vanished in front of him.
yeah. I I don't doubt it. You have to have an open mind for this. You can't think that they're going to act like a bear or an elk or whatever. So
Right.
there's something very different about them, and there's a lot of naysayers on that too. But I don't know. You've got to have an open mind on this because they're going to stretch it.
And then also we talked about before how there are many people who claim that their simultaneous UFO experiences or orbs while seeing the Sasquatch. Although I've heard just as many encounters where that has not happened.
Right. Yeah. I can't say I've ever seen a UFO or anything. But at that conference that I went to, there was a lot of people taking pictures at night, and it's like snowing orbs in all these photographs. I mean, they're everywhere. It's really cool. It's beautiful. It's like almost like a winter wonderland when it's nighttime and you take pictures, but it's summertime and there's no snow. But it's beautiful. I could dig some of those pictures up and send them to you if you want.
Okay.
So yeah.
So, well, one thing I would definitely comes to mind is um, many experts agree in that you should not leave food offerings.
Okay.
You don't want to
Well, yeah.
habituate.
Habit-
Sorry,
Yeah.
these creatures with humans and food. And there have been bad stories. Like I can tell you, I know one story where there was an elderly woman in a cabin in the wilderness and she left out food offerings. Well, one day she didn't leave out her normal offering.
Right.
They broke in her house and drug her off.
Oh wow.
Yeah, the military had to be called in to deal with that situation. Right.
Did they
Um,
body?
and so
Yeah.
there's several encounters. Food offerings is never deemed to be a good idea. It's nice, it's sweet, but
Yeah.
you don't want them to equate people and food together. Just like for the
Which,
exact same reasons they say don't feed the bears, right?
right. Yeah.
First of all, it encourages the bears to be more familiar and
Right.
come up closer. You know,
Yeah.
I watched a show one time where a guy was with his wife feeding a bear, and all of a sudden the bear turned around and took his head off.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
it was completely like nice one minute, and the next minute, then again, I had a friend of mine that was camping one time, and he said he was sitting at his little campsite, sitting next to his fire, and he just cooked up his evening dinner, and he says all of a sudden here comes this bear out the woods, and he didn't know what to do, so he just sat there kind of still, didn't want to make any sudden movements, and he says the bear just sat down next to him and nudged him and said, "Ugh." And he says, okay, so he gave him some of the food, right?
Right.
And so he said they both sat there and they both took turns eating, and the bear would just nudge him and go, eh, and
Yeah.
he'd give him more food, and he said he did that, and then the bear got up and walked away.
Wow. It's just like, hey, thanks for dinner. That's
Yeah,
cool. Yeah, I knew a hunter that was out hunting and hunting deer. He was
right.
bow hunting, and this cub came up to him and was sniffling and snorting around his shoes and everything. And then he noticed not terribly far off the mother. And the guy, he was frozen, and he just stayed that way. And the mother bear came, probably within 20 feet. And I don't know, because I've heard they have bad eyesight, and the guy was definitely still, and maybe the wind was not blowing her direction, but she just kind of ambled off, and eventually the baby bear got bored and wandered off with his mother. So
Right.
every time, if you see these animals out there, they're not necessarily out to just slaughter us.
Sure. Right.
So,
Absolutely.
yeah.
And I had another story where I was living at this wilderness retreat center up north, and there were bears in the area, and we had some guests that came to stay with us to do a retreat.
Mhm.
And this one guy was real nervous about running into a bear. And I told him, I said, don't worry.
Yeah.
I've been here for a year and I've only seen a bear one time, and that was at a distance when it saw me driving and ran off.
Yeah.
And I said, but if you do see one, absolutely do not run. Okay.
Right.
And sure enough, that day, this guy goes out in the woods and a bear comes up to him as he's walking down a trail.
Oh wow.
And he said the one thing he remembered was me telling him, do
Don't
not
worry.
run. And he
Right.
just, held his ground. The bear was curious and went away. But
Yeah,
it's
that's
just,
good.
it's funny. The one guy who's scared to death of bears and doesn't want to see one, that's the one who has an encounter that day.
Well,
Right.
you have that kind of energy, it draws it to you.
Right. Yeah.
If you're
There's,
negative and you think that all these bad things are going to happen to you, they will happen to you.
there's certainly something to that. You had mentioned having the lucid dream where
Mhm.
you saw these people walking around. In the pre-interview, you talked about running into people in the forest that were very strange, tall, thin, and walked with a
Yeah,
strange gait. Were
I
those
was
connected, or is that separate?
no, that's something I think else.
Okay.
I like to go up, in the Lake Cleellum area and down by the dam. There's a nice little walking trail and stuff. It's in like an educational trail for kids and stuff. But anyway, so I was down there with my friend Leslie, and we walked, you know, through there, and we encountered this couple, and they had a black lab mix that was super friendly, and the lab would come up to us, and we were loving on the dog, and good naturedly, we said hello to these people, and they're dressed they're tall, they were pretty tall, and even the woman was kind of tall and wearing khaki clothes, and they each had they looked like they were on a safari in Africa, and
Hmm.
they had walking sticks, and we said hello to them, and they just looked at us, and they didn't say anything, and they just kept walking. We're like, okay. And then at another point, we were ahead of them on the trail, but my friend had seen this little bird on that was flitting around on the bark of this tree, and she was trying to get a photograph of it because it was a really cute bird. So they came walking by us, and the dog was wet, obviously had jumped in the river and had some fun. And we said hello to them again, and they just kind of like looked at us and didn't say anything. But their gait was their walking was normal, but not normal. It was like they on the forward stride. It was like it went further than it probably should have. It was weird, and so they were ahead of us at that point, but not by far. And we'd continued walking because a little bird flew off, and we get to the top of the hill where our car is parked, and we would have heard them start a car, even one of those electric cars they're pretty quiet. We would have heard that, and we didn't hear anything, and they were nowhere in sight. And something, you know some kind of geek in me, I've started to look at their tracks, and I'm following their tracks, and you could see their feet, the dog prints. You could see that where the walking stick is in the ground, and then they just stopped. The tracks stopped, and they were gone. They were so that yeah. There's some weird stuff that goes on up here.
That sounds pretty weird.
So,
When it comes to Bigfoot, have you ever had any direct sightings where you've seen Bigfoot other than
no, not at all.
this chimp on your chest incident?
Right? No, not at all. Just because I sleep or sleep. I don't sleep. I'm in my sleeping bag. I keep my head covered up because I've
Okay.
heard that you don't try to look at them,
Okay.
look at them in the face, and so I want to be respectful of that. So I've never actually seen it, and there was that one time where something burst through the bush.
Right.
I didn't see anything there either when I should have. I mean, logic says I should have seen some kind of something blowing through that bush and running down the slope because it was a clear line of vision.
Okay.
That did not make sense. And then
Right.
when I was with, that little friend of mine that I had rescued, um, those rocks that came rolling down in front of her and behind her, um, it was just like the rocks animated themselves. I was looking, she was ahead of me. I was looking at her. I saw rocks just start to move.
Right.
that, that doesn't make sense.
No, but they're known to play with rocks all the time at people, so
Yes.
that's
Yeah,
not uncommon.
it's a warning, but I think they
And
were
and
messing with her.
several times you've heard the bipedal steps in the
Yes.
woods.
Yes.
Sometimes lighter, sometimes heavier. Have you ever
Right.
found tracks?
No. Well, no, that's not true. There was another incident where my friend actually Leslie and I we were up going up towards Lion's Rock, but it was the snow hadn't melted enough, and we could only get to a certain point in there, and then we stopped, and then we decided to just walk along, this snowy packed road, and we're walking, and we did see tracks, but it was like at one point in the tracks, um, who walks barefoot in snow like that? Humans don't do that. We would have frostbite, our feet would fall off. But it not only walked along, but it pooped. And
Hmm.
it was I swear to God, it was like a salad shooter. This fecal matter, it went on for maybe like 10 feet, and it was like it was walking along, and it was like a salad shooter. And I remember uh, looking at it, and okay, it's gonna sound gross. I went picking through it, and there was, and I still have these little bones. These little tiny bones that I don't know why I was attracted to pick those out and take those home. I still have those bones, but a few years later, I was alerted to a dead bear carcass that had decomposed, quite a bit down to just bones, up near the Canadian border, and I went up there to exhume it, and I was getting every single bone I could from this dead bear, and the little interstitial bones of the bear's feet reminded they looked just like the bones that I found in that salad shooter poop, up going towards Lion's Rock.
Hmm.
So, of course, I don't have any proof, of the DNA if those were bear bones, but I had the idea in my head that whatever this thing was probably grabbed a bear out of hibernation, and it ate it, and it was pooping out at the little bones. I don't
Right.
know. I'm not an expert in anything. I'm just flying by the seat of my pants.
Sure. You had mentioned before too about mind speak.
Yeah, I know some people that can mind speak with these beings.
What would you say mind speak is?
Uh, that they talk to you in your mind. It's not a
Okay.
verbal what you can hear auditory. It's just they I mean, a psychiatrist would probably say they were schizophrenic and listening to voices in their heads. I don't know, but these people claim that they hear a voice in their head, and they can talk and interact with it.
Right.
So, but that doesn't happen to me. I think I've got brain damage. I don't know.
So you didn't encounter the mind speak yourself? You're
No,
talking about
I have
others?
not.
Okay.
If I did, I'd probably poop myself all over again. No, just kidding.
Right.
So no, I don't know how I would react to, something else in my head. It's bad enough as it is.
And but you did say that when you go into areas, you get a general sense of a feeling
I
if
get
it's going to be
pictures in
safe.
my head.
Okay.
I'll explore an area. I don't just go cold, just drive to an area, and without ever being in that area ever prior to that, I don't just drive up there and spend the night. I I like to think I'm sort of cautious, so I go up there, and then certain areas I will continuously get bombarded with pictures in my head of these areas, and then I feel like compelled to go and spend the night.
Right.
So
Okay. Yeah. Well, I'd say that's a form of mind speak too. Maybe not direct, but
yeah, I think they're coming down to my level.
right, right.
They
And
have a good sense of humor when it comes to me.
you had mentioned noticing that times of these encounters, all of a sudden mosquitoes would stop.
Yeah, when I'm if I'm having in an area where I think they are, or they are actually interacting with me, pulling my hair or whatnot, feeling my feet, there are no mosquitoes. I mean, I'm not bothered by anything. So, and mosquitoes love me. I mean, other times at the lake, I'd go up there, and even with repellent, I mean, they're you could hear them buzzing angrily around me, wanting to get in to drink me. So I'm a mosquito magnet.
Right, right.
So yeah, yeah. I don't know what that is. I don't know if that's related to them or what. But that's just another weird phenomena that I've noticed with that kind of activity.
And so you've had a lot of encounters that you would say are non-physical encounters as well.
Non-physical. Well,
Meaning meaning some type of entity that wasn't physical.
yeah. I mean, I don't know what that lucid dream was. That wasn't really physical, but and then that encounter in my house with that dried grass stalk being put between my bracelets and my skin, and that's the other thing too. Is I mean, I don't go. I do live in farm country, but I'm not in the habit of rolling around in the hay fields. It looks good on paper. It looks great in the movies, but it's not a really good real reality things. Those things are pokey.
Right.
But they and I shower with my work. I always shower before I go to bed because I don't want to bring my work to bed with me. It's a really stinky job. So I'm clean, and I don't let my cats in my room because I am a very light sleeper and I can't handle them walking all over me and meowing and wanting attention while I'm trying to sleep. Sleep is hard enough to come by as it is. So, they I thought, maybe they had rolled in something, they rolled in the dirt out there and then got in my bed, but I don't even really allow them in my bedroom anymore. So I do have an elderly cat, and she's a little senile, and sometimes she doesn't hit the litter box every time. So I don't want that in my bedroom.
That could be a problem. Yeah.
Yes, yes. So
In the pre-interview, you had mentioned seeing some kind of being in the woods that had antlers. What was that about?
yeah, that was also at the conference. The very first night that I was there, I got there kind of late, and so it was kind of like getting dusk. But I didn't want to sleep around other people because that's the other thing too. Is I can't. I've been alone so long that people drive me nuts.
Sure.
So I camped off the side of the as much into the woods as I could get, and I was laying there on my cot, and something ran by, and I did still have my glasses on, and it was tall, and it was like it was wearing antlers though. So it was definitely bipedal, and it ran right by me. And so that was interesting. The other thing, the funny thing that was happening that night too is like it was there was like rodents playing with my hair and getting under it, at the back of my neck and trying to like nestle in there. And it wasn't frightening or anything. It was kind of amusing. It kind of tickled. And so that thing kind of like drove me nuts for a little while before it finally got bored.
Right.
That actually brings me back to with the place on the lake. Things don't happen every time you go up there. It's like maybe one or two counters a year of something of substance. But there was this one night up there. I was in the sleeping bag, leaned up against, or I was laying down next to the tree, and it's a big tree. It's a beautiful tree. And anyway, this rodent was messing. I could hear it in my pack. And I don't bring food. I don't bring food when I do the camping thing overnight because, I did the food offerings before in other areas, but those are the day trips. But when I camp at night, I do not bring food because we do have bears. And I just eat a good meal before I go. And I'm large enough that I can live off what I've got going on my body until the next day. It's not going to kill me. So anyway, this rodent would not leave me alone. It was climbing on the tree. It was jumping down on me. It would run the length of my body, back and forth, run back up to my pack, rustle around in there. I could feel it come up because I laying on my side, with my head on my arm. I could feel its front feet and its whiskers checking me out. It happened all night long. I mean, and I know there's squirrels in the area, but squirrels are diurnal. It was it seemed like it was bigger than a mouse. It might have been, one of those bushy-tailed wood rats, or a pack rat even. But it was just so curious that this animal was checking me out all night long, and it was like I was its Disneyland for the night. So
It was interested in you. You
yeah,
were its entertainment.
I was its entertainment, and that was okay with me. It's like it did try to get in my sleeping bag, but I was kind of nervous about that because I don't, what if it got frightened and bit something that that would have hurt. So, and that's the other
Right.
thing with my sleeping bag. I don't sleep because I've heard that sleeping bags are convenient carry sacks. I don't zip my sleeping bag is not zipped up at all.
I've heard stories of people being carried away in sleeping bags.
Yeah, that makes it really convenient. I mean, I'm not that smart, but I'm, I have a little bit of common sense.
A little bit can go a long way.
A little bit can
Well,
go a long way. Yeah.
back to the bipedal creature with the antlers, because that would be a terrifying experience for me. What was your reaction when that happened?
It actually is not terrifying to me. It was,
Okay.
um, first of all, many years ago, I discovered my spirit animal is the elk, and I discovered that in a really strange way. I'm not Native American. I'm just a fat mutt white woman. But I was given Lordy, I was given a friend of mine had shot a cow elk, and he asked if I wanted the hide, and I went to go get it. And when I pulled in the driveway, his boxer was dragging this thing around all over the driveway, and I leaped out of my car, and this sound came out of me that the dog ran screaming. I didn't touch the dog, but I don't know what this was that came out of me, but I made a sound that scared the heck out of that dog. And I went and I gathered up this hide, this bloody hide. The head was still attached to the hide. And I had a visual in my head of how this wanted to be created. And it was a cow elk hide, but I had encountered a taxidermist that mounted it with antlers, and I inlaid the antlers with stones and gems and claws. And as in the process of creating this headdress, I would lose time.
Hmm.
And as I was working on this thing, and the next thing I know, I was like in this body, this 4 foot body, this four-legged body, and I couldn't see what I looked like, but I could see the forelegs, and they were not deer, they were not moose, they were elk.
Okay.
This is crazy. I thought I was losing my mind. At the time, I had really good insurance, and I actually took myself to a psychiatrist because I was disturbed by this, and she listened to me. I thought she was going to lock me up, and she told me that she was half Jewish, half Native American,
Okay.
and she said that I'm not crazy. And she's a psychiatrist, okay? She's a flippin' psychiatrist. And she said I was a shapeshifter. That when I meditate and I go out of my body, I'm in another animal, and the elk is my main one. So, and I know that's totally woo-woo, and that sounds, I know everybody's gonna, well, they probably think I'm nuts already. So being around, seeing a creature, a bipedal creature in the woods with antlers is not frightening to me at all. It's actually very familiar. It's actually like family.
Okay.
So I can send you a picture of me in the headdress too, if you want to see that.
Sure. So
Um,
you'd said that you're interested in trying to go out and look for kind of a dog man hunt. Where were you thinking of going for
well, I'm
that?
hoping there's areas in Washington that I can go to, and I'm gently looking for that, seeing what universe will will open up in that way. I already had a dream. I'll say this first, but I already recently had a dream, and in the dream, it wasn't a lucid dream; it was a regular dream, but of a wolf running at me, but it wasn't. I didn't feel afraid. I was just waiting to see what was going to happen, and then I woke up. But so that was recently. But throughout these last few handfuls of years, I do have dreams of what I think Sasquatch, and in those dreams, I'm standing next to one, not touching one, and it's super tall. I don't even come up to its chest. And in those dreams, I can't see its face. Of course, in those dreams, even I'm polite even in dreams. I don't even try to look at their faces in my dreams, but I can feel the heat baking off of its body. And I don't know why I live in the Pacific Northwest, because I really like heat. I do not like the cold.
Right.
So yeah. So there's that. I have dreams periodically of them.
And I would advise not going after trying to find a dogman experience, just because they are very dangerous.
I
But
know. I know. There's something compelling me. And, like I said, I'm not suicidal, but I think I just, I want to just try for myself. And, if I get a bad feeling, I'll leave. But
yeah, I would definitely suggest that.
yeah, everybody has a different take on it. A lot of people, if they see something in the woods that looks different, that's not, in your encyclopedias, or it's not on National Geographic, and it looks like something perhaps out of a horror movie, they react, they react negatively. They'll scream, they'll shoot, they'll whatever. My attitude in the woods when I'm doing this is like I'm in a state of selective surrender. Um, I will. I realize, I recognize I cannot outrun them, outthink them, outfight them, anything, and so I have to accord them a certain amount of trust. And
Right.
it sounds bat crazy, but I feel compelled to try to make an encounter with a dog man using my same approach that I do with the Sasquatch. Accord them a certain amount of trust and not freak out. Um, I know that they're I have listened to podcasts and stuff like that. They're very mental. They get into your mind. They exploit any fears you have and bring those right in front of you. So if you're out there and you freak out negatively, it's going to go negative. But what if you don't respond negatively? What if you just are able to sit there calmly, and
Right. You certainly don't want to give off a prey drive.
right, and not try to flee?
Right.
That sounds dumb.
One question I got for you is, are you anywhere in the area of Mick Dodge?
Big Dodge.
Mick Dodge. Have you heard of him?
Is that the hole?
That's Mick Dodge. Is they did a Discovery Channel did a show on him.
That's he's on the Olympic Peninsula.
Yeah.
I years ago I saw his show on. He's a funny dude.
Yeah. Oh, I love that show. That guy's quite a character, right?
Anybody would encounter a Bigfoot or a dogman, it'd be him.
Yeah, I want to get in touch with that guy and ask his experience with that. He's got to, living out there in the woods. Not to mention, he's got a bunch of friends like him that just live off the land kind of thing.
You would think, there would be Sasquatch all over that,
Right, there would have to be.
So yeah, I would be really curious if you got a hold of him and could talk to him. Is he even still alive?
Oh yeah, he is. I was hoping you might know him since you're in the area.
Well, I'm in Eastern Washington.
Right, Eastern.
I'm in the desert. He's in the rainforest.
Right. That's right.
Yeah. Right. So that's how I learned about Devil's Club and the medicinal values, the medicinal aspects of Devil's Club. So
what is the medicinal values of Devil's Club?
It's a pain reliever. It's you harvest.
It's a spiny, thorny.
you walk into it and
It's
it,
very painful, right?
yeah, you feel like it's a devil.
So how do you harvest that for pain relief?
Well, you wait till the wintertime when all
Okay.
the sap and everything goes in, the healing properties, mainly go back into the roots.
Okay.
And you find these big mother bushes, and it's always recommended to ask permission. If you're a dowser, you can douse to get a yes or no if this plant will offer up, one of her roots, and you do that, and then you carefully take out one of the roots. You can also do something with the leaves and the berries, I think, but I've primarily just worked with the roots.
And what do you do with the root? You boil it?
Well, you don't boil it. You take it home, you wash them real carefully, and then you skin off with a peeler
Hmm.
the outer bark of the root, and then you can either make a tincture of it with alcohol or glycerin if you're worried about being an alcoholic and having a tincture with alcohol in it.
Right.
So, and then you leave that set for a few months, in a dark space, and all the medicinal properties and the bark come out into it, and it's supposed to be a really good pain reliever.
Okay. Is it
So
a pain reliever if you get hit with the devil's club?
no, it's a pain deliverer.
Right. Right.
And it looks pretty intense, especially in the more lush part of Western Washington where I gathered it. This area where I hike up now to Thorpe Lake, there are Devil's Club up there, but they're not nearly as big and lush as what I see on the west side. So I do not feel like I don't want to tamper with them. They're
Sure.
having a hard enough time surviving. So
Right. Right.
I know
Well,
some, yeah.
Tiffany, we're drawing to the end of the show, but I love your love and excitement for enthusiasm for nature.
Okay, thank you. Well,
And
if you ever need human bait, just give me a call.
yeah, right, right, yeah. We're
Why
not
not?
we're not using human bait right now,
Oh, come on, you big chicken.
but if we get there, I'll let you know.
Okay, you do that. I'm going to be trying to go to Skinwalker Ranch next spring. So,
Yeah, and we would. I hope in the future to do a documentary on Skinwalker Ranch.
yeah,
So
that would be awesome.
it's fascinating. I told you I got a friend of mine who did security there, and
Yeah,
he told me some wild stories, and I'm gonna see if I can't get him on camera, even if I've got to like black out his face and stuff like
yeah,
that.
yeah.
But I think that would be a lot of fun.
That would be a lot
Um,
of fun, but go respectfully,
oh, sure, sure,
and
yeah,
bring offerings
right.
and see what happens, and go with good intentions.
I'm part Native American too, so that helps out a
That
little bit.
helps. That
Yeah.
helps. That helps. This,
So I'm going to go ahead and wrap up the show. And I want to encourage anybody who has any encounters or experiences with the paranormal, especially Bigfoot or dogmen, anything cryptozoology related, we're definitely looking for. I'd like to encourage those people to write us at support@dogmancams.com. And thanks for everyone for your support and for your time. Until next time, have a good day.